e6 e5. And this is the dynamic move, and it's also very much in Gukesh's spirit to always fight for counterplay. Yeah, if you retreat the bishop to e5, it's kind of a scenario that yes, maybe you can survive, but white will always have the initiative, and it doesn't make the position attractive for black at all. It has to be connected with this e6 e5 idea.
And a parallel can be drawn to the previous game where Ding had this concept of solving his problems concretely, also with a pawn break, the move f6. He didn't play it, and he ended up in trouble basically for the rest of the game, which he ends up saving. John, so many storylines, so many stories are in the process of getting written, and the story of the final classical match game is getting written as we speak. A critical moment, the tension rising and rising, and Ding is not rising. He's chilling and he's sitting down deep in thought.
Very, very relaxed. Can you be sat deep in thought and just chill in the final round of a World Championship battle? Oh, that's an awkward place for the picture-in-picture, isn't it? There we go. I love that it just magically flies away.
Chill, calm
Absolutely
dude,
fantastic.
just enjoying a nice whatever day it is. Friday, you know, Thursday. It's Thursday.
What I mean, what even are days anymore at this point? We might be back on Friday. We have to wait. And we have it as chill cam as well. I mean, that's perfect. What I will say is that it's really nice that we are taking a look at so many different positions where there are imbalances. Both sides are seeking to create those imbalances, and they're seeking potential weakness if we run into a time scramble situation or anything like that. So both players are really giving it the beans here. And Peter, I like this. I believe Danya has said multiple times that chess players have recency bias. We have had fairly recent world championships where, oh, okay, let's agree a draw. We're looking forward to the rapids, the tie breaks. This is not how this game is being played out. The players are looking for opportunities to strike, and this is really promising going into the middle game here in game 14.
Well, especially after bishop b6, I'm to be honest completely shocked by this move. I have seen the move, but I did not even wanted to mention it because I somehow felt that this is just bad. Now white might get a free advantage, and exactly that Danya talked about, that you shouldn't be giving your opponent a free advantage like this in this decisive game. Danya, do you see the justification of Gukesh's choice retreating the bishop to b6? What are the benefits?
I'm stunned, and I'm surprised, yes, that he didn't play pawn e5, but if I was told that he moved the bishop, I would think it's a guarantee that he'll put the bishop on e5 for the simple reason that the d6 square is now wide open. Now, I don't think Ding should rush with the move knight d6, but I mean, the most natural move, I would say queen e2 followed by rook d1, and Ding must have something of a tactical nature prepared against that, because if rook d1 and knight d6 are played, you know, the bind in the center becomes serious. Maybe queen e2, he's intending to meet with e5, and he's trying to find, he wants his cake and to eat it too, like to play e5 and then knight d bishop pair. And is that an overambitious strategy if it is indeed what he's cooked up?
Wow, you know, actually, Danya, what catches my attention? I don't know, maybe it's completely wrong, but one line where this d6 square is kind of important, because I believe that Gukesh's idea is to go a6, hit that knight from b5, and then get access to the d4 square, relying on this counterplay. But in this regard, bishop e3 move could be somewhere interesting. I just want to highlight one beautiful line. Of course, it's a cooperation, and it's a bad line. Just to understand what I'm talking about. Bishop e3, a very double-edged kind of move. It's probably not a good move. I just want to highlight one thing. Bishop takes e3. Black captures on e3. Now, white takes, for example, queen takes d8. Here, black can take bishop takes f2. This is a problem. So maybe I should illustrate it from the f takes e3 move order. But then black has queen b6, which was a little bit annoyed me. However, okay, forget about queen b6. Let me illustrate the point. If black plays the move a6, hitting that knight, then white has queen takes d8, rook takes d8, and rook fd1. A super important move. And I win the fight for the d file, and you have back rank issues. And look at this, it's almost borderline lost, because the takes a b5 bishop takes c6 tactics works in white's favor.
Even CB.
Even CB, yeah. It's just a very intriguing position, yeah, that it looks like nothing is happening, it's a strategical fight, but there are so many details to this position, yeah, that catch my eyes, for example, yeah, and Liren is a super player in this type of structure. He will be calculating all these options.
So we can see here that there are plenty of imbalances on the board. Bishop b6 played Gukesh, trying to stir things up as both players aim to cook their way to a middle game that they can win and convert. Also forcing Ding to think more as well. Remember, the time has actually been quite equal this game compared to what we've seen after 10 moves in some other games, for instance. And now maybe this is Gukesh's opportunity to properly jump ahead on the clock. So while Ding sinks into the tank and has a little bit of a think, we are going to go to a brief break. But before we do, remember that this isn't the only live chess event that we have going on in December. There's quite a lot, actually, but the next one is in just a couple of days' time in Oslo. It's the Champions Chess Tour Finals, live and in person, and we say live because you are invited into the room with 8 of chess's greatest titans. We've got Ali Reza, Magnus, and MVL here. Amongst them, they will be in Oslo, and together with the high-stakes chess action, your ticket can also include perks like simultaneous displays, hand and brain. You can have photo opportunities with the players and a whole bunch more. If that sounds interesting and you fancy a little bit of a chess holiday, hit !CCT Finals or visit go.chess.com/CCT Finals 24 and secure your tickets now. We resume with the 2024 FIDE World Championship. After the break, Bishop e6 on the board. Ding Liren is in the tank. The question now is for how long? See you in a few.
The Champions Chess Tour Finals are heading to Oslo, Norway, December 17th to the 21st, and you can be there. Watch all of your favorite players, including Magnus, Wesley, and MVL. Tickets are going fast. Get yours now.
Has this ever happened to you?
Oh, shoot! Another mouse slip.
What about this?
Oh, well, holy bishops en passant. I think I'm getting carpal tunnel. If only there was a way to play online chess with a real-life board.
What if I told you you can with Chess Up 2? That's right. With Chess Up 2, you can now play over the board online.
Wow!
Simply connect your chess.com account to our state-of-the-art Chess Up 2 and get a game started. Every time you move, our revolutionary board will transmit the data online directly to your opponent. And as soon as they move, squares will light up, signifying which piece is going where.
Well, shucks. This Hikaru guy seems pretty good.
With Chess Up 2, mouse slips and sore wrists are a thing of the past.
My carpal tunnel is gone. Well, this sure is fun. I'm playing online against my new friend Hikaru. Who needs a family? But I sure do miss clicking on a piece and seeing all of my available moves, like they have on chess.com.
Well, Danny, you're in luck. This feature is totally available on the Chess Up 2 as well.
Wow. Well, I'm convinced. But hey, what if I don't just want to play an opponent online? What if I want to use one of chess.com's other great tools?
I thought you'd never ask. With Chess Up 2, you can fully take advantage of the chess.com integration by playing bots, analyzing your offline games, and even using our optional AI assistants to visualize the quality of moves with color-coded hints.
Well, holy Chess Up, you did it. You made IRL chess cool again.
You got it, Danny.
And how do you know my name?
Play chess today on the board of tomorrow.
Oh my God, I'm just playing with him now, yeah. Oh my God, what she saying, say it loud, yeah. I can't respect it, I'm in the gym, but I am not flexing. Came from
The woodpecker method, because practice makes perfect.
This December, the world's top chess minds clash in the heart of New York City at the FIDE World Rapid and Blitz Championship. Witness world number one Magnus Carlsen and other stars from across the globe. Rapid and Blitz, chess in its most thrilling form, unpredictable and unforgettable. Fast moves, tactics and blunders, and moments that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Witness the pinnacle of chess excitement. Get your tickets now at worldrapidandblitz.fide.com.
Welcome back to the FIDE World Championship. Plenty of action on the board. Bishop b6, not exactly top of our Christmas wish list as far as candidate moves are concerned, but that, of course, gives us plenty more to talk about. It looks like Gukesh continues to try and find obscure moves or maybe things that Ding isn't prepared for to force him to solve those problems over the board. But at what point does that risk not pay off and the position potentially implodes? Here to discuss that in much greater detail than I can possibly fathom are Peter Lecko and Daniel Naroditsky. Folks, take it away. Plenty of stuff to talk about after that move.
All right, thank you, John. Let's get right into the thick of things because we have a lot to explore. A move has just been made, and surprise meets with surprise. I'm going to stop trying to predict any of the twists and turns that we will surely encounter because b3, a lesser surprise than bishop b6, and in case you're just joining, folks, we were expecting the move e5, opening up a diagonal, unclogging the nostrils of the position. Instead, bishop to b6, strange-looking move. Queen e2 looked very promising. Bishop e3, Peter, you highlighted before the break. Your thoughts on b3?
Well, b3 basically means that Liren understood that Gukesh wants to go for some queen e7, rook d8 kind of setup, and then kicking back the knight with a6, fighting for the d4 square. So in some way, I feel like with the move b3, Liren has believed Gukesh. Yeah, the reason why we're kind of skeptical, we also saw the evil bar, of course, jumping, but even without the evil bar, we both had the feeling like White gets very promising, interesting options. Now, my feeling is the reason why I'm not liking b3 so much, I think it's a decent move, but Liren should have spent maybe a little bit more time. This was a critical moment after bishop b6, because if here after bishop b6 he could have cemented a clear advantage, then the nature of the position that it's wide open, White has a very easy kind of play. Yeah, you are bringing all your pieces into the game. I don't really see the clock situation playing such a pivotal role at all. So in my mind, it would have been justified to spend a lot of time in order to try to punish bishop b6 to the maximum. But now I toss it back to you, Danya, that what is your feeling like after b3? Is Gukesh now able to get away with it, or is this bishop a3 threat actually quite annoying to meet?
It's definitely, I mean, White's position is still preferable, and you don't need an eval bar for that. So I understand Ding's logic. He also probably wants to be more conservative on the clock. What he doesn't want, what his fans don't want, is yet another hairy time pressure situation in the final game. But my instinct here was to play this move queen e2, preparing rook d1. And you mentioned before the break, the position's a lot more tactical than it looks. And I was trying to puzzle out, okay, clearly Gukesh sees this move. What does he have in mind? And I came up with the idea of e5. Like a plus over minus position, specifically a position that's not totally lost, but one like this where there seems to be no hope for a bright future. And it's just random words. The one my first coach taught me was truba, which basically means pipe. You can also say garshok, which is like a pot, or you can even say zhban. And it's like ZH followed by the words ban. I don't even know what that means. I've only heard that in this context. So you want to avoid this type of position at all costs. But queen e2 will remain behind the scenes forever. And let's get our analytical silverware ready, because after b3 a6, can we safely assume that Ding is returning to c3 and knight d6 bishop d4 is to be avoided?
Yes, I think that it's very tempting from Black's perspective to play the move a6 to kick that knight away as quickly as possible to clarify the situation. Just one highlight, yeah, if Black, for example, starts with the move queen e7 instead of a6, that might run into Liren's dream idea. Then he goes bishop a3, bishop c5. We trade the bishops and land the queen on d6. And this is a lovely endgame, horrible endgame for Black, depending on from which angle you are looking at it. It's a total catastrophe for Black.
Yeah, and Black might get banned from the World Championship if this happens. Not a option. Okay, so a6, knight c3. And again, knight d6, bishop d4 would have just picked up the extra exchange. What is Black's correct approach here? Is it to prioritize the development of the bishop? And we should also remember that you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. The moment Black plays e5, it comes with a very heavy price tag. You're giving White this juicy square on d5. So, Peter, what is the lesser evil here for Gukesh if this position is reached?
Yes, it's a very big question because on one hand, you don't want to push e5, just as you highlighted, the d5 square will be very vulnerable. So queen e7, rook d8 kind of setup, and then trying to rely on the d4 square looks like a more natural way. But then still also the question remains, yeah, that how do you solve the problems with the bishop on c8? Somewhere I see some rook d8, bishop d7, bishop e8, hiding that bishop on e8 kind of maneuver. But does Black really have time for it? That's a completely different question.
When I think of a bishop on e8, I think Poreka versus Bronstein. David Ionovich was well known for his unique ideas, way ahead of his time in that sense. And I think he was perhaps the first to propose an increment type time control way before these types of things were in conversation. So queen e7 is one option. I think a lot of people watching would be very tempted to put this bishop back on d4. Remember, it came from there not so long ago. Maybe it's time for the second act. Bishop b2, I suppose. Or maybe.
And then e5, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, considering that Ding wants to put the bishop on e3, there are other ways of defending this knight, but bishop b2 is so natural. But yeah, e5, Peter, and the knight is not moving. Exactly. This looks totally reasonable for Black. I mean, if you compare this position with this position, clearly Black has done a lot more progress than White. I don't know.
Yeah, it's somehow intriguing. Yeah, I'm completely surprised how Dink has opted for b3 and quite quickly because yeah, b3 a6 looks like black gets something. At least he gets the kind of scenario that he was relying on when he opted for bishop b6. Yeah, because the bishop b6 move looks strange, but strategically speaking, if nothing really happens, if black will be able to get back to the d4 square and then complete development, then he will be fine. Yes, so bishop b6 was an ambitious move.
On the
Just we
board,
thought like he will not be in time to get everything what he wished.
a6 is on the board, and I have to point this out just in honor of the chat, which is working hard to find interesting complications and ideas. I did not see this at all, but bishop f2 check was a noble attempt that certainly must have been considered by both players, with the idea of meeting king takes f2 with queen f6. Peter, I considered that stack in other positions, and I'm getting some Anand Gelfand vibes
Yeah,
from this
queen
idea.
f3. You have queen f3, yeah? And queen
Did I
takes
take?
a1, knight c3. Ah, no, I can't. I can't trap you like this. Okay.
That's such a cool idea, though. Knight c3. I just want
Knight
to stop
e5.
it.
You have knight e5.
Oh,
Yeah.
queen e3, knight g4.
Yes.
And who needs a queen side anyway? All you need is a queen and knight. Okay. So is there a different way of trapping the queen here? Bishop f3,
Wow.
queen a1. Wait, what's the big cheese here?
Yeah, very funny.
Could it be king g1, queen a1, and queen? I mean, I can also check. We might not have time to properly look at this. But off the
Very
top of my head, I
tricky,
can't
yeah.
say. Off the top of my head, I can't
Yes.
say. It was bishop f4. Oh, wait, bishop f4. Oh my
Ah,
gosh.
bishop f4, just simple chess. Yeah, of course,
But
protecting.
e5?
Yeah.
I completely missed bishop f4. But e5, it's still not obvious why this is so good. And queen d6.
Queen d6. Yeah, okay, but this is again a very bad endgame. Yeah.
Bishop c6. Okay, wow, this is it's not easy at all. And queen e5 with several extra pawns. Why was this a blind spot for me? I totally missed bishop f4.
Yeah, I missed bishop f4, and I have seen bishop takes f2, but I thought like, okay, bishop f2, rook f2, queen takes d1 is too cheap of a tactic. I will not mention it, but of course, yeah, king takes f2, queen f6. It's a completely different story.
It's hilarious because I was at a Scholastic tournament this past weekend, and I purchased these tournaments have great mobile bookstores, and I bought Vladimir Tukmakov's book, several of his books actually, Profession Grandmaster, and a book called, I think, The Impact of Modern Engines, and he analyzes the game Anand Gelfand from their World Championship match, the 17 mover, where Boris Gelfand opted for a very similar tactic, winning a rook in the corner, and there Vishy Anand ended up trapping the queen. So I was so influenced by that
Yes.
idea that it did not even occur to me that the rook can be saved. How unkind I am to my rooks. I hope they don't judge me. Please, my rooks need to work for me.
Yeah, but I think it's a good illustration also that how much we are kind of shocked by this bishop b6, b3 sequence of moves, because and that's why our brain is not exactly understanding what's happening. I'm still puzzled. Yeah, this bishop b6 option not going e5, and after bishop b6, white opting for this b3 move quite quickly, and after a6 he's thinking. I'm just not understanding. Yeah, the math is not adding up. Like, what is Ding doing? If you play b3, you should expect a6 and you should have your answer ready. Otherwise, why
Yep.
did you play b3 at all?
Like, oh, I wasn't expecting Gukesh to chase away this incredibly annoying piece. And b3, what's painful about this is you cannot play knight e6. Let me show this very important sequence. And maybe, by the way, there's some tactics here. It did occur to me that the exchange can be sacrificed with bishop to a3. Now, very quickly, I'll just show knight takes c8 is not good because this is a full rook that drops in the corner. What about bishop a3, Peter? Or some other type of exchange sack? No. How could Dink possibly be orienting towards something like this when he had a risk-free advantage 2 moves ago? Why sacrifice an exchange?
Exactly, and it also steps into some queen a5 business. Yeah, hitting that bishop on a3, it could also be an argument against. So, yeah, no, knight d6 is absolutely out of question. But exactly then, if knight d6 is not possible due to bishop d4, and knight c6 is kind of the only move, then the whole b3 operation is not that attractive. for white. I'm just not understanding. Are the players showing, or Dinglian is showing sign of nerves? Yeah, that he was unable to force himself to think. Yeah, because sometimes spending time, just as you highlighted, that maybe he's afraid to get into a time trouble in the decisive game. Absolutely understandable, but it also shows that he's very nervous then.
And he must be considering, of course, the preliminary exchange of queens, which undoubtedly is also a concession, a sign that something has gone quite wrong in his thought process. And while Ding is pondering what to do in this critical position, figuring out what his idea was with the previous move, we go live to Mike Klein, who is standing by with the irreplaceable, indefatigable MC Grandmaster Maurice Ashley. Take it away, Mike.
Thanks, guys. We are here with the Master of Ceremonies again, Grandmaster Maurice Ashley, and we're in a very crowded VIP room, but I want to get your thoughts on the game. Ding told me last night not to expect a short draw. What are you expecting so far?
Well, the story of the game so far is this opening move, Knight GE7, that Gukesh played. It certainly came as a surprise to Ding, but he has responded very well. This move with C4 and continuing with Queen D1, etc., is definitely a nice way to play. And so I think that Ding is going for it in this game now. He's settled in, and Gukesh has played some moves so far that look a little bit shaky, let's say that. So I think Ding has very good chances.
You were in the room, of course, starting the round off. Did you notice any change in demeanor or posture of either player compared to the previous rounds?
They gave away nothing. These guys are professionals, right? So they come in, they look stoic, they look composed, they look ready to go, very focused. So I don't see anything whatsoever, no hint of nervousness on their part in such a big game, one of the biggest games of their entire chess careers.
Absolutely, and we are in the VIP room, so I want to get you out of here with a little bit of a fun question. We've been doing a lot of food talk in this tournament. What's the best thing you've eaten so far in the VIP room?
First, personally, I love prawns, and so every time I come here, I'm just stocking up. They probably like, Maurice, stop eating so many of the prawns. I'm responsible for probably 50% of it being eaten. But everything here is great. The organization has been fantastic. The food, the atmosphere, the buzz, certainly the conditions. It's just been amazing. Singapore has done a wonderful job as a host of this event.
I agree. Best run world championship I've been a part of. Grandmaster Maurice Ashley, thanks for your thoughts.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Back to you guys.
The man is 58 years old, but he's got the energy of a teenager. And Maurice Ashley, what a positive presence in the world of chess. He is known as a commentator, but here serves as the master of ceremonies, the head of the press conferences here at the World Championship in Singapore. Maurice loves prawns. Well, the players love their pawns. And I'm loving the transformation of the position for Gukesh. We have knight c3 and e5 on the board, Peter. This is not terrible news, but not great news for Ding, and a sigh of relief must have been breathed by Gukesh fans across the world.
Exactly. I think that Black has certainly improved his position. The big question is, however, that is it equal? Is it enough to completely claim equality? Because we see that Liren has now also speeding up with knight c3, bishop d4, bishop b2 developing, and now the final little touch, queen d2 as well, played very quickly. He just wants to show that, yes, okay, you got the d4 square, but what did you do with your last move, e6, e5? You have weakened that d5 square that we have already talked about. Now white is getting ready to jump with the knight to d5, start trading the dark square bishops, and potentially target the e5 pawn. Yeah, so very nice to highlight with a couple of moves. Yeah, bishop f5, knight d5. And once we eliminate the dark square bishops, then white will get rook fe1, rook a d1 in the center. The pawn on e5 is vulnerable, and potentially also some f2, f4 move is possible as well, just to making sure that black will completely lose the control of the d4 square. And then this cemented knight on d5 gives white certain initiative.
I think that's a really important line because it shows us how easy it is to fall into the sort of eval bar trap. We see a move, we assume that something went terribly wrong, but upon closer inspection, it may turn out that, in fact, Gukesh's path to equality was a very narrow one. And as bishop e6 lands on the board, this is a case in point. This is why Sese was screaming for the... Oops, apologies for that. No, stop. No. What is going on? Why is it? Pause. Sit. Good dog. Good doggy. This is why Sese was screaming for queen to a5 purely for prophylactic
Wow.
reasons, preventing the knight from coming out to d5. And of course, all the armchair generals, all of the couch Napoleons in the world, of course, queen a5. What else is there to do? I mean, why would Gukesh ever develop his bishop? And it's not clear to me what. Rook 81, there is now bishop
Bishop
g4, I guess.
g4. Yes.
And this would have equalized. After bishop e6, knight d5, is black again facing Ajban?
Yes, I have the feeling that the answer is kind of yes. White gets a very nice bind, and this is exactly the reason why we keep on mentioning, yeah, that this is classical game, and so far, Liren and also Gukesh has always spent a lot of time. Now suddenly we have seen this is also a natural tendency when you feel like your opponent is kind of blitzing out the typical moves. Yeah, he's setting up his pieces. Then you want to signal, I also know where to place the pieces. Yeah, it's very natural. But this queen a5 was such a golden opportunity and such a surprising shot. I haven't seen it coming. I have to absolutely honestly acknowledge that no, queen a5 was not on my radar. We also haven't seen this position for too long. That's also one fact. But this is the reason why the players have to sense it and spend time. Now White jumps with the knight to d5 and White has stabilized his advantage. We'll be looking forward to a very nice middle game.
Indeed, we will be. And one detail I want to highlight straight away, the false equivalency of outposts, right? You may think, well, you got an outpost on d5, I got an outpost on d4, it's equal. No, it's not. Because the pawn on e5 is much easier to undermine an attack than its vis-a-vis on c4. In addition, black possesses the ability to take on d5, but then the knight is very capably replaced by a bishop, which might be even stronger. Now, Peter, I'm not sure if White should start with the rook e1 here. I'm illustrating the bigger point, or immediately play the move f4. But I think this is a very unpleasant move for black to face, because in the event of f6, you soften up the target. Now e5 is an isolated pawn, and even after I think the primitive rook takes f8, knight c7 becomes an option. Okay, I'm going down the rabbit hole here. Yeah, knight c7 appears to work, because knight takes c6 and queen takes e5 will finally succeed in completely undoing the Gordian knot. So,
but Danya, just a second. I wanted to tell you that I understand why you almost got a heart attack. Yeah, because some queen c5 and some smothered mate possibilities were on the radar. Yeah,
but the knight, I guess, had no effective discovery. But
yes,
if knight d4 does not concretely solve black's problems, this is precisely the kind of two-result position that I was kind of dreading on Gukesh's behalf. I also don't want to exaggerate here. So how bad is this, for lack of a better term? And what should Gukesh do to minimize Ding's pressure and maximize his defensive chances?
Yeah, well, I don't know, because it's one of those things when White gets or someone gets a stable advantage, yeah, with a structural advantage. Yeah, that's when you cannot really change the course of the game. That's the worst scenario on a top level chess game, yeah, because you know exactly, and we have witnessed this, that these players, whenever they get a chance to press for free, then they just master the situation like a computer, yeah, with computer precision, because they understand exactly what to do, how to improve the position. They calculate all the lines. So at this moment, I'm very skeptical of Gukesh really holding this. Well, in my mind, Ding is not heavy favorite to win it. On the other hand, we know that it's the last game, a lot of nerves are in play. So there are chances for Gukesh to somehow hold this, but it will be a nightmare.
And first and well, literally and figuratively, if he takes on d5, it'll be a bishop mare. But I mean, he has to figure out first and foremost how to resolve the situation in the center. And even before that, he has to decide whether to take on b2 and to find some way to reinforce the pawn on e5, because I find it hard to believe that black can play this position without landing a knight on d4. I think it is crucial to guarantee the knight's safe passage to that square. I just want to quickly highlight like a story that taught me a good lesson as a commentator. This moment where Gukesh apparently should have played queen a5. I remember commentating the Olympiad. There was a game between Wei Yi of China and I believe Norbek Yakuboyev of Uzbekistan. and Wei was outplaying him. I might have confused the Uzbek player, but I think Yakuboyev at one point had a chance to win Wei's queen. And I saw the eval bar shoot up to equality. It was the most obvious move in the world. It was a discover check that simply picked off Wei's queen. And after thinking for 15 minutes, Yakuboyev didn't play it. And I just freaked out. How could he not play it? He missed the most obvious move in the world. What a blunder by the Uzbek player. Afterward, I gave the puzzle to my student as a warm-up. And suddenly I realized that even after he wins the queen, it appears that white is winning by promoting a pawn down in exchange. And it's only a draw because of some crazy 15-move sequence. Which were much, much harder to properly assess. So I learned not to rush to conclusions. This move b3, there was some short circuit, and Ding forgot about a6. But more likely, it was the product of much deeper thinking, and maybe he underestimated a move like queen a5. So I learned to withhold my judgment until I approached the position a little bit more deeply, and sometimes to give these top players the benefit of the doubt, Peter.
Yes, I think that also for black probably it's very important to keep that bishop on d4. So I'm not liking the move bishop queen d6 is a move to try to get a better version of these positions, because I would really love to get b7, b5 in at some point, and by reinforcing the e5 pawn with the queen on d6, I'm kind of also inviting you to take on d4. Then I'm getting my knight jump immediately, bishop d4, knight d4, and then follow it up with b5, creating a weakness on the c4 pawn, and I'm hoping that the weakness on e5 and the weakness on c4 will somehow balance it out.
And if I start with f4 here, then
even here,
f6, is that your intended response?
No, f6. If I have to play f6, I always feel that I will have to suffer. So
never play f6.
My kind of feeling was that maybe I can use the moment with something, but f takes e5, rook e1 is already a big step. My knight on d4 is too vulnerable, so I don't have time for this b5 move, which would kind of solve my problems probably.
And if you shifted the white queen over to b2, because black can get the same position starting when bishop takes b2, queen takes b2. And actually, what exactly is wrong with f6?
Okay, that this e5 pawn will be very vulnerable, after this fe, and white is the one who can always decide when to include fe. That's another issue that bothers me, that maybe you can also keep the tension. Don't take on e5. You play rook a e1 first, for example. Also question, that what do I do?
But maybe then black can play. I'm actually a little bit concerned here about a move like queen b4, trying to open up this bishop in the endgame. But if you play rook a1, maybe I can, at that point, get away with b7, b5 already, just tactically.
So you think like you will be in time,
Just shove this move through. And it's not forced, but somehow like I'm okay here with black, because I don't see exactly how white's going to put more pressure on the e5 pawn.
Yeah, but please don't take on e5, Danya. Play rook a1, for example, without fe5. Just if I go rook a1, I want to play it immediately.
Yeah, you want to keep this option open for a rainy day. You don't want to withdraw your 401k before retirement. But what does black do here? Black, okay, let's say I go b5 anyway.
Yes, so I'm wondering if I have any tactics in the position.
It smells, I mean, f5 is a cute move, but black will be acutely aware of the danger of taking that pawn, and we'll just simply drop the bishop back.
Yeah, not so easy. Yeah, okay, can I play... Well, it would be lovely if I could play queen e3, but I have to calculate knight c2, and it's a very, very funny kind of line. Then f takes e5, the line goes on. It's a very intriguing line. Maybe I can do it. But always after queen takes e5, you have queen c5. No, I can do it. Okay, let's go for it. Let me play queen e3
Oh my gosh, what a line. I mean, I stopped when I heard not you have to calculate f takes e5, but you have to calculate. But let's try. Knight c2, f takes e5. And let me just show for maybe the newer viewers who might see there's a rook hanging. You cannot stop your calculation just because temporarily you're down material. Everything hangs, and just look at this. Black can resign. Black loses all of his pieces. So obviously, knight takes e3 out of the question. And you were looking, Peter, at f takes e5?
F takes e5. Yeah, f takes e5. And then the question was that how do I justify my queen e3 move?
here, I think, yeah, queen takes e5. Yeah.
I think I can take queen e5.
Queen c5, king h1, and there's a discovery with knight f6.
The only question was, do I take rook f8 first or not? But yes, I think I can just take it immediately.
Gukesh is all too aware of the importance of that question. Do I exchange rooks first? He didn't do that yesterday, and that cost him half a point potentially. So f takes e5 works, and white retains the advantage. Maybe black can start with b takes c4. This is not a complicated position at all. I think we need to get something more complex, Peter, because I'm falling asleep looking at these obvious forced lines. And look at this.
And b5 on the board.
Straight
Yes.
away.
Yes,
Straight
this is
away.
the critical. Yeah, this is basically the critical idea. Yeah, you have to undermine white's pawn structure. Black has to fight against this structure, and this is the way. This is the only way to justify. Yeah, quick b5. Yeah, forget about what I said with queen d6. I wanted first queen d6 to go b5, but if you can play b5 immediately, then it's so much stronger. And look at this. Ding is not moving from his resting area. He is looking at the screen. He has seen the move b5. Very nice to have access to all this video feed. Is he rushing back to the board?
Neither player wants to sit at the board. Board is radioactive. They want to keep their distance. Ding has not changed his posture at all. b5 did not seem to have much of an impact on him, but it has quite the impact on the d5 knight. I think this is a great move by Gukesh, and we have the luxury of seeing that tactically it seems to work out, and it shows that Gukesh understands the urgency of the situation. I mentioned the tendency of procrastination. When you're only a little bit worse, it can be easy to say, there's no direct threats. Let's play some moves out of general considerations. No, Gukesh senses that Ding is only a couple of moves away from developing potentially fatal pressure on his kind of central construction. And so he jumps into action, trying to undermine the knight on d5 as best he can.
Yeah, absolutely justified. You remember just a couple of minutes ago, I was saying I believe that Ding Liren is a clear favorite and black is in for a very tough defense. It's a nightmare scenario. Yes, if white gets the grip perfectly, and Gukesh understands that, yeah, he fights back b7, b5 on the board, trying to create a weakness in white's camp as well. Imagine b takes c4, b takes c4 included, and we'll be already talking about a weak pawn on c4 as well. Not only black's e5 pawn will be vulnerable, there is already this tendency of somehow seeing that black will be able to get away with the game. Yeah, it feels like then there are good hopes of solving the problems.
And with a wide open center like this, there's always going to be ideas like a discovered check, right? You can imagine, and I'll put this on the board, if white trades, I assume this is the critical variation, then in some reality, the knight moves away from d5, boom, there's a check on f3. So you get that feeling that, white will attack e5 and black will attack c4. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, and there's a high tendency for liquidation in these highly tactical positions with an open center. So my question, Peter, let's say I play f4.
Yeah, now you can take b takes c4. B takes c4 intermezzo is possible, yeah? This is very important.
So I have to take back. And what now?
Yeah, well, now I'm telling you that please look at your pawn on c4. It's also isolated already, yeah? So not only I'm having problems. So this case, psychologically, I feel that, yeah, some tactics might work already in my favor to liquidate.
Rook c8 right away.
Yeah, let's try. Fe rook c4.
And you defend the knight simultaneously. And here's black wins.
Yes.
Because precisely of this discovered check. White just loses on the spot. That's how quickly the fortunes can change in a position highly charged with tactical resources. Wow. Fe5. So let's say I go rook c1.
You have to play rook c1, exactly. And now it's still black's task to find a good reaction to this.
Knight c6 maybe allows some f5.
Yeah, voluntarily giving up the knight on d4. Just very nice to highlight one time that, yeah, queen d6 runs into double blow. F takes d5, queen e5, some rook e1, and the knight on d4 is loose, and also knight e7 fork. So there are some tactical issues for black.
Yeah, knight e7. So important to spot these forks before they appear. But you're right, Peter. Great find. Rook e1 just dislodges the queen from the knight, wins a full minor piece. Amazingly, and here queen c5, I suppose, would be the way to cut out most of the damage. But why is white not much better after king h1?
Yeah, it's pawn is a pawn, right?
As I heard George Washington say in his inaugural address, a pawn is a pawn. Andre Philidor agreed with that. Yeah, I don't see Gukesh going for this position.
But wait a second. Can you maybe retreat with the knight to c6, target the e5 pawn, and then go for some knight a5 targeting the c4 pawn? Is that a concrete computer idea?
Wow. Now knight f6 already is, an idea to reckon with, but no, it doesn't work for sure. Not enough pieces. And if I go rook fe1, just to highlight
Then
here,
knight a5.
Using every inch of the board. Wow. Yeah, that looks...
At least as an idea. Yeah, it's there.
The computer move here is rook fe8, but this is so vague. Such a vague move to play. You're down upon, no problem. And then, okay, h3, h6, king h2.
h6, yes.
Time to pause the clock, and our job is done. But no, I don't see this happening, because to just go for this pawn down position is classic computer chess. Because the queen on c5, contrary to what Nimzovich taught us, is an amazing blockader. It's almost as good as a blockading knight, paradoxically, Peter, because it's hard to impossible to attack.
In this concrete position, yeah. But I get your point, yeah. So the big question is how the players are calculating all these lines, yeah, how deeply. But we get this feeling, and I think this is the reason why we should be happy that we are kind of illustrating all these possibilities, that we get the sense that how tense is the situation. Yeah, it's not just looking at the evil bar and saying that it's almost equal or white is a little bit better, but there's so much intrigue, so much happening, so many ideas that, yes, if white gets his position, his dream position, that black will be in a lot of problem. But Gukesh is fighting back with b5, trying to be in time to target that weak pawn on c4. I'm loving what we are seeing.
C takes b5 is on the table as well. CB, AB, and then maybe the knight can drop back from d5, which is a temporary possibility. If black plays rook c8, that's taken off of the menu. So, I mean, no question that Ding isn't risking. He's got ways that he can liquidate if he so chooses, but to not even try to push for an edge when just a couple of moves ago, we considered Gukesh's position to be critical. I mean, obviously, one can remember the final game of the Caruana-Carlsen match, where Magnus had a big initiative with the black pieces and then suddenly accepted a draw, to the great surprise of all the commentators.
No, he offered the draw. That was the shock. He offered the draw, yes. And Fabi happily agreed. Of course, Fabi has no right to offer a draw in a bad position, yes. So it's also a psychological battle, but that was a position which was extremely sharp, yeah. And Magnus had the strategy that he doesn't want to rely on one attack that might be very strong. He might be winning the game, but if it backfires, then there's also the chance that he might lose. Yeah, it was a different kind of psychological situation.
Harder position to evaluate, and one could argue a bigger edge in the rapid portion. Carlsen was just so confident in his rapid ability after defeating Sergei Karyakin. Here, as you said, the calculus and the dynamics of the situation are much different. A funny story, I actually did some live commentary for that game. I was in university to some classmates and members of the Stanford Chess Club, and I woke up late, of course. And as I was rushing to get to the student union, I got pulled over for running a stop sign. But I told the police officer that please let me go because I need to catch the opening of Carlsen versus Caruana. And I got let off with a warning. So happened to be a chess fan. And
wow,
I actually knew that a world championship was happening. So my story checked out.
Yeah, that's fantastic news. Yeah, imagine if someone would have been ignorant. Yeah, that would be life-changing experience.
Chess seeps through and unites us all. But here, look at the pacing of Gukesh. As you said, the camera angles, in case someone needed any more intrigue off of the 64 squares, well, you got it.
Exactly. This is so illustrative, yeah, that the players are in the resting room. If, for example, we would not have access to the video, we would not have any idea what's happening there. But like this, Gukesh feels the moment. Yeah, he knows that he's under pressure. He also feels, however, that he might be in time, and he He seems to be in time with his counterplay b7, b5, but you can never be sure about. That's why you are moving back and forth in your room. Uh, it's also the way how I kind of reacted. I always like this to go into some resting room and then walk back and forth, have your privacy. Yeah, you feel like, yes, I have the privacy, but at the same time, not just sit there like Liren is sitting, but to be a little bit active.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pacer. I pace everywhere when I'm talking on the phone, anytime you're ruminating. And c takes b5, indeed. I mentioned
Wow.
this in passing, but what a committal decision. And the knight on d5, it looks questioningly up at Liren and says, you better have something really concrete in mind, because I was enjoying my life on d5. ab5, knight e3, knight f4, knight f6. Where is he going with that knight?
Wow, to be honest, when you mentioned the move c takes b5, I felt like, yes, of course, Danya is a great commentator. He has to announce a move like c takes b5 as well, because you have to highlight that this move exists. But I thought, like, no way it can ever happen in this game.
Me neither.
And yes,
Yeah.
and then it's on the board. Wow, I'm shocked.
I think, I mean, again, I want to give Ding the benefit of the doubt, but he might be just trying to liquidate the game at all costs.
Yes.
And let's put some moves on the board. Let's try to understand. I assume he's going to move his knight. The instinct move was knight e3, but this is terrible. Why would he give away all of his assets? Perhaps he wants something more tactical, Peter. I'm looking at knight f4 and knight b4. Do you have any insights here?
Well, my insight is that my brain just shuts down when I see a move like c takes b5. Like, okay, why on earth would you give up the control of the d5 square? Yes, it has to have some tactical justification. Let's take a look at your lines.
But here, just bishop
Knight
takes
f4.
b2, queen takes b2, rook c8. I mean, this looks so... Even if black loses b5, it actually looks quite dangerous for white with the presence of a move like bishop h3. And he's played knight f4. It's on the board.
Yes, it's on the board. Yeah, great call, but I'm not liking it. Yeah, simply
rook
the
b8 draw.
direction.
Sorry.
Well, could easily be, but look at this. Suddenly, black has solved all his strategical problems. So yes, those are tactical, but the point is that there is a saying in chess: when you have a normal position, then normally the tactics should always be on your side. Yeah, and when I look at this position, black has completed his development. I don't have any feeling that black should somehow get into trouble in these complications. It cannot be.
Yeah, I mean, Gukesh with the move b5, I mean, if he had to accompany this move with an explanation, I'm initiating a long campaign to eventually, maybe one day, get rid of the knight on d5. And Ding, he says, let me be your best friend in that endeavor. He takes on b5, eliminating the support for the knight, and now is ready to exchange not just the knight, but also a bishop that was potentially going to exert serious pressure on black's knight had it landed on d4.
But also,
Really
wait a
surprised.
second, Danya, the line that you showed with
Yeah.
e takes f4, bishop c6, bishop b2, queen b2, I'm even slightly worried for white. Is it possible that suddenly you highlighted rook b8 and okay, you
Right.
just make a move that actually the position can be a little bit tricky. The white king will be more vulnerable. The bishop on e6 is a lovely piece. You better make sure with white that you trade off everything and make a draw, because potentially it can be slightly worse.
Something like rook d1 comes to mind. Your point is very well taken, and the frustration for Ding has been seemingly playing defensively in situations where he's virtually not risking. I mean, the queen and two rooks, middle game / end game, the opposite colored bishop position, where he ends up giving away two pawns to force a draw. That's been one of his issues, and it seems that he's on that path again. Where would you put the queen in this scenario? Would you put it on b6?
Well, I first would like to highlight the scenario. Look at the stage. Gukesh leaning forward. I think that for the very first time in this game, he feels confident. He knows that actually, wait a second, I was defending. I had to be precise, and all of a sudden, my opponent shows a sign of weakness. Do I have a chance maybe to take over? I think, knowing how ambitious Gukesh is, he is now, first of all, very relieved. He knows that, okay, I'm fine. And secondly, he's also looking that, can I somehow do something?
and maybe I've jumped too far. Maybe there's alternatives before this stage. But if this position is reached, you mentioned that Black could even flirt with the concept of applying a little pressure, stepping on the gas pedal. That makes me think of a move like Queen G5, exerting pressure on the G3 pawn. I would definitely take Black here. I mean, in a blitz game, for sure, because of the dynamic chances. I
Yes.
just don't like the direction of this game. And like you said, Ding would have to be, keep his position tight, maybe drop the bishop back to G2. I think there is almost zero chance that he won't make the draw here. But the fact that we're even having this conversation is crazy.
Exactly, yeah. For example, just to highlight some FG-AG change, Black fixes with b5, b4, the pawn structure on the queen side. Nothing moves there. And there is a psychological game. Imagine Black is in time to play Rook FD8, H5, and all of a sudden we are already talking about a very serious kind of initiative from from Black's perspective. So I'm kind of surprised. We see this line, e takes f4, bishop takes c6 is the current position. We are expecting the trade on b2. And Gukesh, and knowing Gukesh, he will be fighting. And this won't be such an easy draw unless Ding can prove it.
And, there's a common wisdom in sports. When you're the underdog as a sports team, coaches often say, get the game to the fourth quarter. Because the shorter the game is, the higher the possibility that something crazy happens, right? Anybody can hit a shot, a clutch shot with 2 minutes left. So I think Ding almost universally, considered the underdog before the match. I would argue not given, sometimes in some corners the respect due to a world champion who's demonstrated excellence throughout his career. But, I think he's okay with getting this match into the tiebreak phase. I think that was the discussion before the game. Manage your risk, right? Don't do anything crazy. Gukesh would like to end it here and now. Gukesh wants to end it in the regular time portion. But Peter, Ding has an opportunity served to him on a golden platter to exert massive pressure, and instead, he seems to be hoping to draw the game from a defensive posture. Hard
Exactly.
to explain.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I don't like. So even if you go for a tiebreak, if that is a strategy, but if you show a sign of weakness in the last classical game when you had the chance to push and then you are not making the most out of your chances, yes, maybe the game would have ended anyway, but there was absolutely no reason why he wasn't able to pose some problems, some questions, force Gukesh to solve the problems and head towards the tiebreak in this psychological scenario. Yeah, now, for example, if Gukesh makes a comfortable draw here, or even will be able to push, squeeze a bit, he will feel euphoria that, wow, I actually survived this game. And not only I survived this game, but he showed a sign of weakness. He's not ready to fight. This case, I should be able to use this possibility maybe in the tie breaks. Yeah, I'm not liking the way how Ding reacted, not at all.
And it would dilute some of the pain from the fact that Gukesh missed essentially a clear-cut win in the previous game. If he saves this game, he'll feel that relief, and that will replace, chess players always have that recency bias. It might replace some of the pain otherwise that he would feel from not ending the game, from not ending the match in the classical portion. Now a big moment. Rook b8 is possible. Typical computer move also available, and that is Rook a5. To my eyes, maybe I'm getting too old school, Peter. Maybe I'm too boomer, but Rook a5, I would never play in a million years. Thank you, Gukesh, for making me feel safe.
Yeah, clear. Yeah, Rook b8 is a nice move. And I also feel like why this is so important psychologically, yeah, that the previous game where Gukesh was black, he got outclassed by Ding. And we were talking about, wow, finally we have witnessed Ding in his peak and how beautiful chess he can play. He can play a flawless game like a supercomputer. And that's a scary thought, yeah, that wow, and it will be in your mind. And then suddenly we have seen the next black game, this last game, run number 14, and again, Gukesh was under pressure. Yeah, so connecting these two games, one gets the feeling that there is a reason to worry for Gukesh. Yeah, that okay, with black I'm always not finding a comfortable position. My opponent is very strong, and suddenly at this moment, Ding solves all his problems. And then he feels like, okay, wait a second, my opponent is vulnerable after all. Yeah, these kind of things in a match scenario should never be underestimated.
Very true. And of course, Rook a d1 was the move we initially considered. but it does give the queen a lot of latitude and the possibility to maneuver itself to a commanding post on g5. I see some people proposing queen e5. Maybe white's queen can be first to the party. Now that, I'm aware of this move, it does begin to make sense. I wonder why that could be. What would you play here, Peter? What do you think is the clearest way for white to prevent this from spinning out of control?
I think that the chat is absolutely right, that queen e5 is kind of a move that controls the game. Yeah, so it kind of forces black also to release the tension, f take g3, h take g3, and potentially setting up some rook d1, bishop d5 ideas. Yeah, the bishop should be traded because that bishop on e6 is a monster, and eventually potentially might be seeing some liquidation into a drawn endgame, even if white loses the pawn. Just like Ding Liren yesterday held at 3 versus 2, it was not an issue at all. A very similar scenario we can be seeing eventually here.
And so maybe black doesn't have the time to play b4. I would be inclined to move the queen out of the danger zone with queen b6. And at this point, I would give it like a 95% likelihood of liquidating one way or the other. Peter, would you co-sign that point? I want to be honest with people. That doesn't mean you should watch the rest of the game. But would Ding try to force the bishops off the board? Or is there a case to be made for bishop g2 being safer?
Well, I think bishop d5 is impossible due to queen c5 pin. Yeah, this is a problem.
Rook fd1, rook d8.
And rook d8.
Rook c1.
Rook, you can steal. You can survive. Okay, but it was a very scary moment. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, in a decisive game. Yeah, but yeah, if it's possible, then of course you can do it.
Yeah, this will shorten the lifespan of the players and the commentators by about 10 years. But yeah, the draw will be attained, and it's all because of this resource. Yeah, rook a c1, and rook takes d5, rook takes c5. The rook x-ray defends the queen, so black can draw probably with queen b6 or queen d6. But bishop g2. But what you said earlier, my worry here would be that in the long run, if the queen is dislodged, maybe black can use the pawn majority, but that's a very unlikely event of a water landing.
Yeah, in general, of course, for white, it's very important to trade that monster bishop on e6. Yeah, now also we see that the fixage of this pawn structure on the queen side, yeah, with b5. It's always important, yeah, people always say, okay, Ding Liren opted for rook fd1, that in order to evaluate the position, imagine if you remove all the pieces from the board. Yeah, and potentially if black gets that pawn to b4, the pawn endgame can be lost for white. This is one of the scary thoughts. And also, if we remove all the heavy pieces from the board, then the bishop endgame is also potentially losing, yeah, because black gets the passer on the king side, the pawn on a2 will be an eternal weakness. At least it will be extremely dangerous. It could be potentially lost. So there are scenarios how white can lose the game, but there are no scenarios that ever can go wrong for black. Yeah, that's the reason why we feel like white has to rush with trading the bishops, because then once you trade the bishops, then the drawish tendency, you bring all your pieces to the center, force some more trades, and it should some way or another liquidate into a drawish rook endgame.
And bishop d7, I think if you want to guarantee that bishop on e6 doesn't get away, that would be your choice. It is, of course, for white important to factor in the possibility of f3, but in a wide open board, I think that pawn would be too vulnerable. There would be no way to defend it for long enough to get your queen to h3. So I'm predicting bishop d7 or bishop d5, and it is beginning to look like a peace accord might be on the other side of this liquidation. Of course, there is a draw rule in place. You may not offer nor accept a draw until 40 moves are made. But Peter, I think you pointed this out in an earlier broadcast, where there's a will, there's a way. There is just a certain routine that the players engage in to find the appropriate repetition when both of them have fully settled on a draw.
Or they will find a direct liquidation, yeah, and then they can also blitz out their moves. Yeah, that's not a problem. I'm completely sure it's like 100% that this game will end in a draw. That's not the case. That's that's not the question. The question that I'm having, that why on earth did Ding Liren showed sign of vulnerability? This is my concern, yeah, because in a match scenario, match situation, psychology plays such a big role. And coming to the last game, Gukesh clearly was thinking like, okay, I have to neutralize my opponent's white move, his kind of preparation, his opening. He was much more tense, then he got under pressure, and he gets away with it thanks to Liren releasing the tension way too prematurely. I really feel like now after this, Gukesh will get tremendous amount of confidence that, okay, my opponent is afraid. Yeah, this is the message that we are getting from Liren's choice by going c takes b5. Look at also his chair movement. Yeah, he's moving around in the chair, trying to make a draw, desperately trying to make a draw. And just a couple of moves ago, we're talking about he's having a risk-free advantage.
John, I'm sort of going to repeat my analogy from yesterday. I feel like I just stepped off a roller coaster and the world is spinning before me. Just a second ago, we were singing the praises of Ding's ability time and time again to show capability of meeting Gukesh's opening preparation. He gets surprised, he reacts well, boom, small advantage. And all of a sudden, where's that advantage? Where's the knight on d5? Where's the long-term positional pressure? And where is the will to squeeze that advantage out to its conclusion? This game seems headed certainly for a peaceful conclusion, but are we in for another twist?
I actually suspect not at this point, but I feel really strange about it as well, Dan. Yeah, the last time we went to a break, we were singing Ding's praises, trying to keep things double-edged, keeping imbalances into position, looking for opportunities to fight for those small advantages, to look for a potential win on the cards. And then now it feels like it's a completely different story. So I don't know what the caster curse is doing here today, but we should talk about the psychology of that and what potentially this means for tie breaks, because it is now very, very real, and it will become a very important part of our future conversation for the rest of today. Deadlock at 6.5 each. Liren liquidating to a probably drawn endgame against Gukesh here. Not too much life left in the position, just a couple more things to try, and the players already looking at each other like, are we going to tie breaks? The game's not over yet, though, and it still has to be played out over the board. We'll find out when we come back.
Gemini, can you help me plan my 3-day vacation? Generate a photo of a muscly capybara.
Explain the concept of supply and demand with OpenStax.
Hi, Gemini. Quiz me on the rise of industrialization.
Can you help me find an email?
Yeah, I can help with that. James Cantor III here, and we're back with Liren's greatest game on chess.com. Let's dive right in. Of course, we have Chef's House with the white pieces, who is Liren. And with the black pieces, we have Jan Krzysztof Duda going by Polish Fighter 3000. Modern theory so far. Second brilliant move of the game. What is that move? The move here is, you ready for this? This is G5. And we live. Oh man, that's sick. Big fella, don't block with your whole face. Let's see what happens after king takes g5. What is the move after bishop takes g5? What do we do here? This one actually is like a mate in 8. But it starts with queen g7. Queen g7 is first, right? Hit him with check. You have king h5 and king h4, right? So king h4, king h5, you have queen g3, especially king h5 here, right? King h5, in many cases, you go queen takes f7 check, and then you come back around to h7. Then you go to g6, like it's a windmill in a way. Queen f7, king g5, queen g6, all right? Queen g6, king h4, queen h6, king g4, this is really f3 check, king takes, queen f4 check, king e2, your king. I mean, look. That's too funny. But of course, that didn't happen in the game. After bishop takes g5, what happened is he was like, you know what, bro? I believe you. You going to the world champ? You know, you playing for the world championship? I believe you, says Jan Krzysztof Duda, and he steps out the way and says, have a nice day, right? Okay, we got some more combos here after King E6. Okay, Queen H3. Boom, take the bishop. Check, right? That was 2 brilliant moves so far. King to D6, get out of the way. Now here, this is actually tough as the player playing white here. You have to figure this out. You want to keep the initiative and keep attacking. How do you do that? Okay, the move here actually is rook takes b7, right? It takes the pawn. It also hits the knight, which is hitting mate here. Watch this vicious attack. Third brilliant move's coming up. After rook e6, okay, white has to play a very strong move here. It's hard to find. Let's see if you can find it. Right, it's very instructional today, and I want you to really use your calculation and tactics as much as you can and think. Pause the video, really, and try to figure this out. It's white to move. Where do you go next? This was a difficult one to find, but not difficult for somebody like Ding Liren, who plays Queen F5, right? Queen F5, a very nice move. I mean, Queen here, right? Bishop F4 check is coming as well, right? You're just getting closer to the action. You're also defending the bishop in case of a rook G8, right? Stuff like that is kind of annoying, right? But Queen F5, getting the queen in the game a little bit more, a little bit closer. You also have Queen F4 in some cases, right?
This December, the world's top chess minds clash in the heart of New York City at the FIDE World Rapid and Blitz Championship. Witness world number 1 Magnus Carlsen and other stars from across the globe. Rapid and Blitz, chess in its most thrilling form, unpredictable and unforgettable. Fast moves, tactics and blunders, and moments that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Witness the pinnacle of chess excitement. Get your tickets now at worldrapidandblitz.fide.com.
Welcome back. All sorts of drama in game number 14 of the FIDE World Championship. Perhaps slightly unexpected. We don't know. The Reti being wheeled out once again as a potential weapon in game 14. There have been plenty of flashes of the players trying to push for interesting positions. We were talking about moves like Bishop B6 earlier on, but it does look like that in recent moves, the position is now liquidating towards a draw. So this is interesting on several fronts. First of all, why were we fighting to look for those small improvements in the position earlier on? And what changed our minds to say it's okay to liquidate here? Some questions that maybe later on in the press conference, Ding Liren will be able to help us answer. But what this does mean is that if this game ends up in a draw, we are going to be going to tie breaks, which means we'll be back on broadcast tomorrow as well. And they will function very differently to the 14 games of classical chess you have seen so far. So if there are people in chat who maybe haven't followed a World Championship match before and are going, well, hang on a second, what does that mean? We've got you covered. Take a look at this. This is what we might be going into tomorrow.
If the FIDE World Chess Championship match is tied 7-7 after 14 games, we're in for the final countdown, tie breaks. This is the part where nerves play a crucial role. Who will keep their cool under intense pressure? The playoff consists of 4 rapid games, 15 minutes plus an increment of 10 seconds per move. If the score remains tied, there will be 2 more rapid games with reduced times, 10 minutes plus an increment of 5 seconds per move. If still tied after 2 blitz games, the players will enter the final stage, sudden death. A single blitz game will be played until a winner is determined. regardless of how the match is decided, it's bound to be a treat for chess fans worldwide.
So there is a lot to break down here, but in short, we've got a 15 plus 10 rapid match, and it's a 4-game match. If that's still tied, we then take the time control down to 10 plus 5, and that becomes a 2-game match. If that's still tied, we go to Blitz, and we get a time control of 3 plus 2 instead, and if that is still tied, we then go to Sudden Death with a 3 plus 2 time control. Now, Peter, I think there are two questions we want to ask ourselves here, and I want to try and separate them both. Question number one is us trying to work out why the game has suddenly decided to liquidate and why we're happy to go for the draw. And then question two would be what we think will happen and how we believe the players will be approaching a tiebreak. So if we take these one at a time, could you summarize the psychology of the last hour over the chessboard as to why it felt like we were fighting for small positional imbalances, and now suddenly it looks like the ambition's being sucked out of the position?
Well, I think that Gukesh's b7, b5 move had a psychological effect on Ding, because it looked like he has a risk-free advantage. He gets a nice position. He's the one who is pushing, and all of a sudden Black creates counterplay with b5, and there is a potential danger that he might be having a weakness on c4. And his nerves didn't really let him continue the game, and he saw an exit that, all right, instead of going for this unbalanced position where maybe something can go wrong, clearly seeing ghosts, and that's why I feel like he showed a sign of vulnerability, that you shouldn't be showing in a match. And he opted for c takes b5, releasing the tension just in order to liquidate. And now talking about the tiebreak, and I think these two things connect with each other, that in this case, Gukesh will feel that he's the hunter in the match. Yeah, and this psychological feeling that, okay, my opponent is always, whenever there is some tension, some intrigue in the position, he is trying to look for an exit, which won't be always there. This will encourage Gukesh to keep on looking for chances and put Ding under tremendous pressure in the tiebreak games.
Oh, I'm going to do something horrible, Danya, and leave you with a thought that probably requires quite a lengthy explanation. Peter has just said, and with very good points, that Gukesh might be the hunter in the tiebreak. On the other hand, we've seen Ding repeatedly find really accurate moves under time pressure in the classical portion of this World Championship match. And a lot of people have been saying before the match, maybe we throw that out the window, that Ding could be favored at faster time controls. Is this Ding saying, yes, you caught me by surprise today, but I'm the one hunting tomorrow? This is going to be a fun argument to have. I leave that one with you.
Well, that's great stuff. Food for thought. And indeed, John, Ding repeatedly, as Peter points out, causes the game to peter out unexpectedly. And first of all, let me be very clear. As Ding falls below 30 minutes, he is way overthinking things. I was expecting him to play bishop d7. Now he's decided to keep the bishops on the board. This is precisely the scenario that we outlined, where there is no clear path to liquidation. It's making him frustrated, and Ding sort of tilting at windmills, right? He's like Don Quixote fighting enemies that aren't there. He had a perfectly good position. Earlier on, he should have taken longer and perhaps played the move queen e2, but even after the move b5, Gukesh didn't have a direct threat. So an overreaction by Ding, and you feel like he's sort of sliding into his old ways. You felt with the victory 2 games ago that this is the new Ding. Peter, as you said, this is Ding 3.0. But in this game, you feel that lack of confidence once again, and the game is still going. There is no question in my mind that Gukesh is not himself looking to cooperate with Ding's desire to liquidate. He's looking at his clock and he's saying, at least let's reach move 40, and then I'll think about it.
Exactly. As long as the bishop is on e6, and we see that this beautiful bishop on e6 is looking at both directions, yeah, towards the queen side, towards the king side, there is this weakness on a2. Yeah, let's just highlight one more time that this b4 pawn from black is actually blocking both pawns. Yes, white has the option of going a2, a3, trying to give up a pawn just to get rid of it, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's going for a4.
That was unreal timing, Peter. How do you do it?
Yes, but actually, is he losing a pawn by force, or will he lose it in a long run? Yeah, because b takes a3, rook takes a3, bishop takes b3 might run into rook b1
Yep.
pin. That would be a big blunder.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, we both felt like knight is bishop beautifully eyeing the b3 pawn, and Gukesh has clearly opted for the b takes a3 en passant. This b3 weakness is not running away. Yeah, black is already beautifully ready with queen on b6 and rook on b8, targeting that pawn. And we might, if we get into some endgame with 3 versus 2, rook and bishop versus rook and bishop, it's also a draw, but it's a playable draw, yeah? So white would definitely love to give up the pawn on bc only if he is able to trade the bishops as well.